So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the third and fourth match day for the World of Tanks Pro League Season 2. Now, you may notice I am once again joined by the lovely Ollie, but, you know, you guys were saying you missed a certain someone. Now, we couldn't bring back our usual social media girl, but we have someone who's not so glamorous. We are joined by Stephen, who we will go back to later. I'm so sorry, guys. He's tried to get the chest down a little bit and, you know, get in there a little touch.
I was buttoning it up, but then some people said, don't button up. We enjoy what we see. So, you know.
Naughty. Right. I like it. So we obviously have our full team kind of here, but we have some fantastic games coming up today.
We certainly do.
But before we get into that, there are even more brilliant games that happened on the first and second match day as well. So hopefully we can give you guys a quick look into that. So looking at this one, we have seen some standout games to me personally. Now, I'm not sure about you, but seeing Dragonborns lose to the new addition to this is an upset.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, they had a shaky start at the beginning as well. I mean, they went 2-0 up in that game, like they did in the previous season.
Yep.
And I think they're just a team that needs to settle into the season. They need to get used to it. They need to get used to playing again. They've had a little break, obviously not the longest one since DreamHack was only like a week ago.
Of course.
But, you know, it's early days. 1 win, 1 loss. It's nothing drastic. But Team WoT DE are looking very, very strong. 2 wins on the first day against 2 settled teams, you could say.
Pretty impressive stuff. And then going on to Denova as well, the ex-MYM team. These guys didn't do too badly either. Obviously, we did catch the Spale game that they played, but they did also face off against Mouse Sports, and they won that fairly comfortably as well. So certainly a team to be looking out for here, would you say?
Yeah, I think they're definitely looking one of the stronger teams. I mean, I was talking to their team captain, Yuri, a little before on the forums, and he was saying that they're training a lot harder. And it's not so much about the training for them, it's about getting the motivation. Obviously, they had that sponsor before, apparently wasn't giving them the most support. And now they're an independent team, they're an independent esports organization, and they just really, really want to do well in this upcoming season.
Indeed, and let's put our attention towards Dignitas, because I'm sure the guys, you know, in chat right now already know the games we might be covering today. So looking at their results so far, I wouldn't say they're underperforming or overperforming, but there's been some close games here already against the HUNS Underdogs there. We saw them going 3-2, so a fairly close game for the people who did win DreamHack. So it's already becoming a bit of an interesting start to the season here.
Yeah, I think that's more of just a foreshadowing of the season, because in the first season we saw the 2 big Russian teams pretty much storm ahead with 3-0s, 3-1s all over the place. And we always said that in Season 2 we were going to see the closer games because the European teams are now catching up. I mean, obviously HUNS Underdogs wasn't one of those teams, but they still gave them time to watch the videos, get used to the game style in the best of 5 World of Tanks Pro League. And also another interesting result would be that Virtus Pro 3-2 against Isuba. So it's already, you know, harder games. Exactly, it's already harder games for the Russian teams straight away so early in the season. So I think it's just indicative of what's going to happen as we go on further into the season. Yeah,
indeed. So now, before we go too far into depth with the games we have coming up today, let's pass over to our not-so-glamorous assistant who can just kind of tell you exactly how you can get involved with the games today.
That wasn't nice at all. But I'm trying hard. Maybe not as gorgeous as some ladies that we had sitting here, but I'm definitely more glamorous than Joe Miller. I think we can all agree on that.
Nope.
All right, then I'm not. But I might not be that glamorous. I might not be that good looking, but I've got some good things on board. I've got some premium codes out for you. So what we'll be doing today, going to put up some polls on Facebook. Also, you can check us out on Twitter. And yeah, you just bet what team's going to win. Let us know, and if you're right, I might pick 1 or 2 people and they get some bonus codes. Also, throughout the show, I might knock out some in the chat as well, so just always stay tuned. Not just because of codes, because of the game as well. And if you want, you can ask some questions, because then I'm just going to throw some over to our experts. Ollie, he's not much of an expert, but Pandas, have a look how much questions she can answer.
Oh, this is cruel.
Yeah, you want to bring on the fights? There we go. Ooh. So just ask any kind of questions. Don't try trolling me like you troll Melly, because I might find out that you're trolling me, and then there's going to be less codes. But yeah, just give it a shot, and then we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously you know exactly how you can get involved in the games today, but let's go over the games we do actually have coming up now. So you've given us a good pick here, I've got to tell you that. So what are the first games we have coming up?
Well, we've got Dragonborns, which is obviously that team we really enjoyed seeing at the beginning, and we've got Dinova versus Team Dignitas, which is the team I'm really looking forward to seeing. Team Dignitas was one of the stronger teams, and so was Dinova going to the first season. But HUNS Underdogs are the new team. They are the upcoming team. Dragonborns a little bit more settled. So those two are going to be an interesting matchup. And HUNS Underdogs, just looking at the lineups they used on the previous 2 match days, they're looking for something completely new. You know, we saw 5 AMX 1390s on steps. It's something which I've never seen before, and it just shows that they're a team that wants to go out there. They're a team that just wants to try new things, try new tactics, new setups, everything in the new season, because that's what's going to get them the wins. If they don't have the player skill, which I'm sure they do, but that's perhaps what they're seeing. Oh, we don't have the experience or whatever. Let's just try something new and see if it works.
Yeah, indeed. So that's just the first game as well, bear in mind. We do have another game coming up just afterwards as well. So it's going to be an incredible set of matches here. And I'm going to see, do we have the overlay for that? Do we have another one for the second game?
Yeah, before the second game.
Okay, so we'll go into that when it's up there. But Dragonborns against the Underdogs, that's going to be an incredible match, I've got to say. I want to see how Dragonborns fare coming in after a loss on their first day. So it's going to be hard for them. Surely that's a bit of a mental trick as well. After, you know, being so strong in the first season, you know, being one of those teams who are, you know, quite prolific throughout it.
Yeah.
Then already going to an edgy start, do you think that's going to play mentally into their kind of gameplay today?
I know. It's a hard call. I mean, the biggest problem they all have is that they've had quite a lot of roster changes. They've got UK in there, UK, I think. Also got Ram as well, who was the scout player for Pekula, which was one of the old teams, one of the old German teams, led by the famous Magus. So a couple of experienced players. UK is a little less experienced than Ram. And I think that'll be the biggest changes to them. I mean, if it was the old team, then I would say no, because they're experienced. But if it's a new roster a little bit, then perhaps those problems could come into effect for sure.
Okay, with that in mind, where's your money going to be on tonight then? Who are you going to back for that first game then?
I'm going to have to go with Dragonborns, just because they have a pretty solid lineup and they are the more experienced team. But HUNS Underdogs 3-2 against it was Team Dignitas, I believe. That's pretty impressive on its own.
Yeah, very much. So who's going to be the outstanding player? You already mentioned a couple of names, and you know, obviously for the team you're backing as such, who's going to be that standout player, do you think, to make kind of the odds in this one?
Well, since we don't have artillery as much anymore, we've seen on the forums a lot of people saying that artillery doesn't work. I would like to see one of the new players, UK, Ram. If they can prove themselves in these early match days, then they're going to be superstars in the upcoming season. Because everyone loves a budding new player who's doing really well.
Of course.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking to those two to prove themselves. Unlike Runes, who jumped off a cliff last match day, if you remember that.
Yeah, I think just about everyone remembers that.
Yeah. New Kazna crew player. Good job. Good job.
Yeah, that's not how you want to start things off, is it? On that first game, you know, the one you want to really impress, and so show exactly what you're made of in the big league, pretty much, and you go and roll down a cliff.
Yeah.
That's
GG.
It's not great, is it, really? So HUNS Underdogs are not, you know, a team to be taken lightly. Let's go into them a little bit here and kind of discuss exactly what they could bring to this. You know, is there any couple of players you could look to their lineup to expect to stand out, or do you think it's just, you know, the general team cohesion that really matters with them? How do you think they're going to fare up here?
I think they've always been a team about cohesion. I think they've always been a team which doesn't really have standout players. I mean, as all the best World of Tanks teams, it's all about how the team performs as a whole. I mean, it's not like an Evil Panda squad where you have like new multi-show who's just obliterates everyone, who's like the best player. I think their team's just going to be about, as I said, new lineups, new tactics, new way of thinking in the game, so new meta game. I think that's what's going to really work for them. And if they can make that work, then, as I said, Season 2 is theirs for the taking.
Yeah, it's all up in the air. I think obviously the first 2 days, or the 2 match days results have already shown that everything is up for the taking here. It's not just a clear-cut match anymore. I think obviously I was speaking to Stephen earlier, and he said, you know, a couple of the games, even the last season, went right down to the wire.
Yeah.
But I think this season it's going to be very hard to call those early favourites. I think everyone kind of obviously has their favourites from the last season, but there's that transitional gap where obviously newer teams can come up and really show themselves and show exactly what they're made of. And we're already seeing that coming through in the first 2 match days.
Exactly.
So God knows what we're in for. I've got to say it. Obviously, this is going to be impressive, and I can't wait to see how this whole season unfolds. And I'm sure you guys can't either. But yeah, I want to see who's going to be the ones to really upset. So looking at the teams we've got here, we've already seen the upsets in the first 2 days. Do you think they're going to be able to continue that form throughout, or do you think maybe the more, I don't know, standardized teams, or the kind of pillars within the community will kind of finally go, oh, all right, we need to really work out what they're doing here. It's a bit of a surprise at the start, but now we know what we're in for. Do you think they're going to kind of be worked away mid-season here, or do you think it's going to be that kind of upsets all the way through?
Well, I think it's like any long season. Obviously, our season's not that long in terms of times, but there's a lot of match days.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So I think we'll have those teams that just stand out in the first few games. We saw D-Nova, which was BMYM before, win their first 2 games last season and then lost another 2. So I think we'll have the early, perhaps 10 match days. We'll have a few forerunners, and then we'll have that middle season section, which is, I think, the hardest part, because you don't know if you're going to win, you don't know if you're going to not win but go to the offline final, or if you're going to be relegated. So you're in that weird section in the middle. So I think that middle game is where the team's going to have to really excel. The early game is important, but I just don't think it's as important as the middle game.
Yeah, that's when you start to really see the grind on teams, especially. It's when, those early new strats that they may have brought out or worked in will be worked out, and people will be able to counter it. So you're going to see already a change in the entire kind of game. So we are just going to wait on a little bit of an invite from the teams, I believe, at the moment. So do bear with us, guys. We're just going to have a look, see if they're ready to go yet. I don't think they are just as of yet, but let's have a little look and see exactly where we're at. But yeah. How do you think this one's going to pan out? Then you've already, you've put your bets on it. Do you think it's going to be a clean win for one of the teams, or is it going to be a bit of a slog here?
I think it's going to be a bit of a slog because, as I said, these 2 new players, not in the team, maybe not fully integrated. I know they've been playing a lot of platoons together, so it could be a bit of a slog. I would say it wouldn't have been such a slog if it was Dragonborns' normal lineup. But looking at HUNS Underdogs lineup, does look like they have their main team here. They got Mikizio, he was actually a really good player. He still is actually. Kaxa as well, one of their best players. Mr. Chef, obviously their team captain. So a lot of good players there. Will it be a complete rollover for any of these 2 teams? I don't think so.
No, I think we're going to see something a little bit harsher start happening, and a lot more work to be made. But I think, have they started actually doing the tank picks here? I'm not too sure. Let me just have a little look here. Miss out
they have not started doing their
not
tank
just
picks.
yet.
No.
But they are getting themselves ready to, so we're not far away from jumping into the games. And what sort of map choices do you think we're going to see coming out from these teams? Is there going to be a clear-cut kind of favourable map towards them, or do you think they're going to kind of go, we'll see how we do when we get there? Is there no kind of clear map choice for these teams to really go for? Especially with the RT now obviously being eliminated, teams that may have already kind of depended on that or used it a lot may now be a little bit of a loss, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think that's why we saw Ensk and Himmelsdorf for 2 of the first maps last match day. So, I think the teams are going for those city maps as opposed to the open maps. But eventually they're going to have to pick an open map because, you can pick a Ruinberg, but what happens if you lose one map? Then you're going to have to go to your 4th map. So I don't know. I think we'll see probably Ensk and probably another city map, Ruinberg or Himmelsdorf. But I'm hoping we see something new like Steps. Which we haven't seen yet. We saw Ruinberg, we haven't seen Steps.
Yeah, I did. I have had a chance to play it, so I do like the feel of it already. And I want to see it competitively, obviously. That's a massive thing in this, that, you jump onto a server and you play, with just about everyone else, and it's never quite the same as when you watch the real professionals play it. They really show you how to utilise that map, and obviously the various tanks you can use on it. But I want to see, I want to see if someone takes RT today. Do you reckon we'll see an RT actually picked in any of the games today?
Well, I'm hoping, at least. I mean, I can't predict if we will or if we won't. I mean, I think the first 2 match days when we were more likely to see it because the team still perhaps didn't really know if it was an optimal lineup or not. So I think as we go through the season, there's going to be less and less chance of us seeing artillery. Unfortunately, for those artillery lovers. I'm sure there are a few out there, a few old school players like me who loved playing artillery and was an artillery player.
Back in my day.
Yeah, I feel like a tear coming on right now.
Wipe that one away. Listen. But no, it's an interesting choice. I've always wanted to see it, and obviously I started casting when the patch came through, so I've never actually had the chance to cast it. I've seen it played in public games, but that doesn't really equate to much. So it's more about seeing how these guys obviously adapt to it and see what they bring in place of that. Obviously, it's going to be an interesting choice. And do you think any of the 2 teams really used to have a focused artillery player in this as well?
Well, Dragonborns certainly had it. They had Dr. Tour. He was probably top 3 artillery player in the league, so very important to their wins. But they have quite a solid lineup all round. I mean, they used to depend on artillery a lot more than they do now. HUNS Underdogs still have to see exactly how their team plays. I mean, I've seen them play in Go For What, I've seen them play in other leagues, but haven't seen so much of their team, so I can't call if they'll have a standout artillery player. I never will, because they may never pick artillery.
Obviously, and it must be a worry. Obviously you really focus this role within a team, and suddenly this huge change comes, and it's going to be good to see who adapts well to it. Obviously, as you said, there's certain teams that may obviously focus that class and use it quite a lot, and obviously favour the maps that do favour the arty. So now without it, it's going to be a very interesting season. I think all the results from the past season, as true as they are, some of the results may have gone differently. I remember you did mention that while the game was defined by an arty, that it can happen when situations are almost out of your hands and you can almost save it with that one moment. So it's got to be great to see how this comes out. But I'm just keeping eyes on it. I think they are just sorting out the maps as we speak, so we're not far away. It's just a matter of time. You've got to love it, right? Yeah,
they do like taking their time, that's for sure. Trolling us.
Oh, of course. It's never going to start smoothly, guys. Never. Never. But if anyone missed it, and then they don't necessarily know about the patch updates and why we're going on about artillery and bits like that, obviously there has been some changes. Now, you know this like a handbook. It's kind of worrying. This guy is literally like a Wikipedia sitting next to me. So why don't you explain exactly why that arty may not be now used as much as it previously was, in case anyone wasn't here for the first, 2 match days. And if you weren't, make sure you check out the VODs as well, because they are up on the website. But for those here now, why don't you fill them in as to why it's not used?
Well, there's 2 fundamental reasons. The first one being the statistical. I hate how many S's there are in a statistical. Can't even say it. And the second one's more of a lineup reason. So if we go over the first one, we have obviously the 10 to 15% shell travel time, 50% if you're using a howitzer. So something like a bison or something, it's going to be a lot longer. You have to, get used to how fast the shell travels. So you're going to have to pretty much learn how to play artillery in that respect again. We've also got accuracy changes / nerfs. I'm not sure. Wargaming a bit ambiguous as to which one they've done. I think it's about a 10% nerf, as we saw in the previous iteration when we had artillery nerfs. I think also it's about tier points. The second fundamental reason is tier points. If you have a GV Panther or Lorraine, which was your 2 favorite artillery picks in the previous season, tier 6, tier 7, now tier 7, tier 8. So you can't be using the same lineups like we saw, like a GV Panther T2 light combo. You can't use that anymore. So you're going to have to completely change your lineup. You're going to have to take a T50 instead of a TV-2, etc., etc., etc. And suddenly your lineup goes from very strong to very mediocre. So those are the 2 reasons, but I still think the first reason is probably the more dominant, because you can't take a tank that just misses. I mean, the basic premise of artillery is that eventually you're going to hit, because it has got a certain amount of accuracy. But if it's so inaccurate and so hard to use that you're always going to miss that, it's so unreliable, then what's the point of using it?
No, exactly. I tend to agree. So, obviously, big changes coming up, and we've already discussed how it's going to affect these teams. But there's a hell of a lot of other teams already have their strats already set. Well, not necessarily set, but they had them in mind, and that's now going to change. So it's all about the adaptation in this, and that's the big difference between a good team and a great team. The ones who really can adapt, and we're going to have to see that at the moment. So, and we are just sorting out exactly what the teams are up to. I think there has been a bit of a delay issue with the teams. I think. So we do need to invite Stephen, I do believe, so if you can do that, that'll be awesome. But until then, as we said before, if you are wondering about the previous games and games we mentioned, there are websites. You can obviously check them out. So you can go onto the YouTube, the Twitter, the Facebook. There's a hell of a lot out there. If you look up WoT Pro League, you can find it in front of you. So make sure you're tweeting about this. Tweet at them. Let us know your opinions on this, especially as well. Because these games, I'd say maybe even before match days 1 and 2, you could have called very clear cut to one side. But after the first couple of results, it's all up in the air. I don't think anyone would have predicted a good handful of the results we had coming in just the first 2 match days. So it's already going to be incredible. Do let us know what your thoughts are on this, and we'll have Stephen back later to give you an idea how you can get involved and give you away some goodies, because everyone likes freebies and goodies, right?
They do.
I love a good
It's nothing better than something free. It's just the best thing ever. I mean, yeah, it's a tank, which might be the best thing ever, but we've also got some bonus codes. So we've got some gold, some. I think he comes with some premium stuff as well. So it's good all round. You can't argue with it.
So he may not be Melly, our poor little Stephen, but at least he's trying to make up for it somehow. You know what I mean? Just give him a try, guys. Bless him. So I think we are going to be just getting underway. Yeah, they're going to start picking, I believe.
Yeah, HUNS Underdogs making it so. They are going to pick the first tanks. I think we'll see probably AMX 1390s, maybe an artillery there. We saw HUNS Underdogs take 5 AMX 1390s in the previous game, so it was pretty insane.
Yeah, indeed. So expected picks for these sides, you know, is it going to be... And we're going to get to see steps.
We're going to see steps. I just thought it was Ensk, but they changed it to steps.
Indeed. So the map we haven't seen too much of yet.
We haven't seen any of it yet.
Exactly, we haven't seen it officially. So this is going to be good. It's going to be the first time we're going to see it. It's going to be between 2 teams of a sensational caliber. So they aren't just going to sort themselves out. There we go. There we go. They took their sweet time, didn't they? It's always the way. Didn't go smoothly.
Exactly. I mean...
They're here to test us.
Yeah, they're here to test us. Yeah.
That's one. So what can we expect to see on steps? Obviously, you already kind of gave through the general tags. Do you think there's going to be any adaptation coming out with this map in mind? It looks fairly open to me. Would this be what we'd, might see an artillery on if, it was going to be played? Yeah,
certainly. As I was saying before, I mean, if there's going to be any map where a team takes artillery, this is the most likely. Obviously, you've got your Prokhorovka as well, another likely pick. But I think there's a 50-50 chance. There may be a team that doesn't know so much about the nerfs, maybe a team that doesn't play so much. It's up in the air at this point. I mean, could go, could not go. Just depends on how the team feels, how the artillery player's feeling. But I think 50-50. Probably.
Yeah, it's a shame yesterday the way the game went, but, with Spale playing, obviously, and those guys opted to not go for the artillery, and then they got absolutely smashed in the 3rd map. So we didn't really get a chance to see, how much that would have been influential towards it. But maybe we'll have a chance today. We're just going to have to wait for them to kind of get themselves in the right place and start this underway. So you've already said it's a 50-50 chance if they go for it or not. So do let us know on the social media ways if you think they're going to go for the artillery as well. We want to know your thoughts towards this and how it's going to affect the game, obviously, because it's a big change, but it can work out for the best. It's going to obviously change a lot of the teams and kind of put them under pressure to really bring their A games. So I'm looking forward to see that. So let's have a little discussion as towards what other tanks we might be seeing in this. Is it going to be another map where you see very standardized picks? Is it going to be one that, obviously, without the arty, let's remove that element from it. Yeah. Is it going to be your standard tank picks coming in? Do you think there's going to be any shockers coming in for this one, or are these 2 teams the ones that will go for the regular kind of picks here?
Well, Dr. Tor kind of answered that question there because he's just taking a WZ-132, a tank we actually only saw at the beginning of Season 1. So that's kind of coming back into the picture a bit. I mean, Steps hasn't been a map for European esports in World of Tanks for such a long time. I think we removed it back last year, sometimes middle of last year, maybe the end of last year. So, as I said, it's always a bit like an open map. It's always the same. I think they're going to be taking fast tanks with lots of firepower. So WZ-132 is a possibility. That's why Dr. Tor is taking it, and Ram, their new player, will be using that. T69 as well coming in. We expected at least 1 or 2 of those. And your AMX 1390s. And it does look like HUNS are actually, may actually go for the AMX 1390 full lineup. They're taking a T1 at AMX 1390, which still gives them the opportunity to take another T1 and another 4 AMX 1390. So it'll be interesting because that didn't work for them last match day, but maybe they have a little, they've teethed out a little problems and they'll make it work.
Yeah, it is all about going back to that drawing board and kind of looking back over your own demos and trying to work out exactly where you stand with this as well. Because, if something doesn't work, there's normally a reason why. It can be the specific opponent, but it can also be, the way they're playing together as a team and, how they're trying to gel. And it maybe just didn't happen. So that's probably why we're seeing a little bit of a change here. But obviously, you may be noticing there's a player missing on one of the sides here, and that is for the Dragonborns guys. And they're actually missing one of their more prolific players as well, which is a bit of an issue for them. I believe he's actually stuck in traffic, but it's going to have to happen. Simple as that. So they are going to be up with, I think, only 6 players. That's going to be a real shame to miss out on, obviously. Is it Magus or Mug? How do you pronounce that name? Sorry, I've been hearing his name thrown about everywhere. I think he's even casted with you a couple of times.
Yeah, I think it's Magus. We just call him Magus. I mean, Magus. Marcus is his real name, so I guess there's some ties in there. But it seems like, yeah, he's stuck in traffic or something.
It's a shame.
And obviously, there's only 10 of these guys in the team maximum, which isn't like your go for what's where you can have pretty much as you want. Some of the teams found out when they joined the Pro League that they couldn't just add players
Just switch and
arbitrarily.
change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, it's always problems like that. I mean, if one of it was always real life problems. If you get stuck somewhere and you can't get home, then this happens.
a real shame.
Yeah, it is a real shame.
Yeah, but it's just going to put more pressure on Dragonborns to have to somehow really dig deep and bring this out. They've already, started off not to the best of starts, I'd say, in this season 2. I think obviously they looked so good in the previous.
Yeah.
I think they have a lot to now kind of step up to. Has there been any further picks while we've been waffling on?
AMX 1390 and an AMX 5100. Quite interesting picks, actually. AMX 5100, your tier 8 French heavy tank. Quite a big chunk of metal. I wouldn't have thought teams would have picked it, but perhaps it's more relevant last season because it's not picked on maps like these because it's so big. Not necessarily because it's so slow, because it's about as fast as a T69. But once an artillery shell connects with it, that's the end of it. I mean, it's so big, it's like a box. It's so easy to hit. But I guess they're counting on HUNS Underdogs not taking an artillery, so that's an all right pick, I guess.
Yeah, so we're already seeing the picks changing, let alone the gameplay towards actually keeping in mind that Artie may not now be involved. So I'm loving the adaptation already. These guys are bringing out tanks that I've tried, but I haven't seen played too much at this point. So obviously this is going to be brand new. This is when you start with a new season, it's not normally a new complete way of looking at the game here. That's exactly what we're going to get: a new map, new picks, missing Artie. It's going to be completely different. So I think a lot of the predictions that you might have brought out initially, may be a little bit off here because it's a lot of changes for these teams.
Yeah, that's for sure. But change is everything. I mean, we didn't expect Season 1 to be the same as Season 2. We certainly don't expect Season 2 to be the same as Season 3 as we get so many patches now. I mean, there's like a patch a month, and every patch seems to bring something for esports. We had actually changes this one.
Yeah.
Next one, I have no idea what will happen, but I'm sure there'll be a new map or some changes to some tank parameters or some tank that's useful, which will change the gameplay, the meta game again. And then we'll have a completely new Season 3, and obviously we'll eventually get an esports mode and stuff, which will completely change the whole of World of Tanks esports. So all that cool stuff coming up as we progress throughout this year. But it does look like finally we have a 7th person, Crooks, just joining in the fun in his, I'm not sure, probably of an AMX 1390, as Caxa picking 2 AMX 1390s, which will make them 3 AMX 1390s and 1 T1 up, while DB has gone for T1, an AMX 5100, and an AMX 1390. Ooh, actually a WZ132 instead of that T1.
Indeed. So, with these tank picks in mind, are you going to change your opinion on who you think is going to win this one? Obviously, we do see a possible missing captain who's had to have a replacement step in. And that's for the team you backed in this. Are you going to change your opinion now? Or are you still going to stick by them?
It's a hard one to call. I think I'm gonna have to stick with my guns because
You're sticking with it?
I do like the old gamble, and I find it hard to go against, I don't know, the odds, I guess. But it's strange. I mean, look at that. I mean, 5 AMX 1390s being picked by HUNS Underdogs. Again, that lineup, which didn't work for them against Team Dignitas last match day, but it could work for them here. It's a lot of firepower. I mean, it's just going to be hard to juggle that much firepower and really concentrate it. Well, you have Dragonborns, which has a little bit more player-friendly tanks like your T69s. Your 132 is a bit easier to play than an AMX 1390, so it's going to be a hard one to juggle. But if they get it right, then it's going to be absolutely deadly. But yeah, it looks like all problems and delays have been resolved.
Almost resolved.
Almost resolved.
Almost resolved. It wouldn't go that smoothly. It's all I'm saying. Do you remember that red eye curse?
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
I do remember it because he got my stuff lost.
Oh, you had the travel curse.
No, he didn't. It didn't my stuff didn't get lost. It was even worse. My plane broke down twice. Right, got on the plane, it broke down. I had to. He went under. He reset all the systems. I got off the plane again, and then they completely took out the bellies of the plane, like all the electronics, put it all back again, got us on the plane and flew us to our locations, and that was with red eye. So you know, I don't know.
Ouch.
Exactly.
So I'm bringing my own curse into this of delays. That's what I'm bringing here. You know, things don't run smoothly with me, is all I'm saying. Things just seem to go out the window, and that's the way it happens. We're gonna deal with our choices, but I think they are just sorting out their final players, and we are going to be going into one in just a moment. We have seen some interesting picks already coming out. Obviously, that massive presence of the AMX 1390s for the the HUNS Underdogs. So it's going to be curious to see how the Dragonborn side do deal with this. They have got the more kind of standardized pick, I'd say. Not necessarily the most standard, excuse me. Obviously, the tank pick that kind of threw us off initially after we said, yeah, they'll probably go standard. You know, that's probably the only spanner in the works as such. But do you think there's going to be any changes to this? Or is this, you know, who do you think's kind of got the best picks here? Or are they just completely dependent on the players who are playing them?
Well, I think in terms of, you know, at the end of the day, you pick your tanks, you pick different tanks because you want to get a team composed of the most friendly tanks because, you know, you have some tanks that are strong at some things, they're weak at some things, and they're all right at other things. So at the end of the day, you want to be getting the best of all the worlds. AMX 1390's full lineup like HUNS Underdogs is not getting the best of all worlds. Yes, you have a lot of speed and a lot of firepower, but you don't have you know, you don't have a tank that doesn't that reloads without an autoloader, so 45-second reload. So here we go, HUNS Underdogs versus Dragonborns in our third match day. Dragonborns will be looking for their second win. HUNS Underdogs will be looking for their first win. Our first map will be Steps. HUNS Underdogs picking 5 AMX 1390s. Dragonborns going for a little bit more classic lineup. You have your WZ132 in there, so it's a bit strange, but perhaps it will be a classical tank in this season. So you know, we could see anything happen here. Dragonborns pushing over to the trench side, the right side, or your left side, depends which way you look at it. But they are looking to play pretty offensively. Crux spotting straight out onto the AMX 1390.
Yeah, Mr. Chef has been truly spotted, having to weave his way out of there as best he can, trying to back up just a touch after he has been literally met with an absolute flurry of shells coming directly towards him. He has actually been hit as he's made his way down the defilade towards that 9 line. Going to have to back up as much as possible. The rest of his teammates are sitting back very defensively right now. He is literally playing, they're playing so passive. You know, you already mentioned that the tanks that they're rolling with are very fast. You know, they can get into the action nice and quickly. But they're really using them very defensively here.
Yeah, they could be waiting for a number of shells from Dragonborns, which will mean that their autoloaders are reloading and they'll pounce in onto their main body of tanks. It's a pretty interesting tactic if they do that. I mean, Crux will be able to mitigate that because he doesn't have an autoloader, so he'll just be able to pump shells after shell. But then again, they'll know that, so they'll go after Crux first, so he can't do that. So we could see any of those two possibilities happening. But Dragonborns probing forwards a little bit. They've put their WZ132 a little further. But HUNS Underdogs still pretty defensive.
Well, you say that. They have gone all the way from that 9 line, all the way back around towards the 2, leaving that AMX 1390 that initially scouted out that first tank to just kind of leave the feelers out there. You see the rest of them making a full left push towards the opposition. So this could catch your guys off guard here.
Yeah, it could, but that's all is okay. Ram in that T1 spotting the majority of the forces, and now Dragonborns will know, okay, there's 2 MX 1390s there. Will probably be a few more because having 5 of the same tank is kind of indicative of that maneuver. First shell trying to be connected onto Ram. It will be eventually.
Nice.
That will mean T1 down for Dragonborns, but Ram actually doing a good job. He didn't die so quickly. World of War also did quite well because his gun only got hit, but I guess that's more luck than skillful play. Mr. Chef actually getting some good shots onto Vanguard, but Mr. Chef taking at least one Chef. UK is also down to 1-1-2-6, but pretty even exchanges. I think Dragonborns would have looked to connect a few more shells at the beginning.
Yeah, indeed, and the HUNS seem to be very happy, you know, getting aggressive on one side, retracting back, trying to adapt to. We do see the T1s making their way straight up that 4 and 5 line right now, just pushing a little bit further forward. They're really happy, being very quick and adaptive on the fly right now. We do see the rest of the side backing up now, kind of making their way back to where they began. Those 1390s really working with the speed that you mentioned earlier, and just repositioning, re-challenging, and being, well, they're not being static at all. They're being completely fluid with the way they're playing. I'm quite liking watching this, a very different style to what we're used to here.
Yeah, well, it's a good way of doing it. I mean, you go at one side, you find any tanks up there, you kill anything, okay, they killed a T1, fair enough. Okay, let's go back, let's reset the fight, let's get into a safe position, and let's push up the other side and see what happens there. So, you know, flying back and forwards, it could be seen as an inexperienced move and an experienced move, because some teams just do it because they see other teams do it, and they don't understand why you do it. So it could be one of those two things, but I think HUNS Underdogs do have enough experience, and they've obviously been playing this lineup a bit, otherwise they wouldn't take it on steps. So I think it's a little of an interesting move, but I think they're going to pull it off if any team can. I don't think we'll ever see a team take 5 AMX 1390s on steps, regardless if this one works or not.
Yeah, it's an all-in kind of tactic as such, and while Mr. Chef's still doing a little bit of scouting work, he has spotted that T69 just down by that 7 line. He's not challenging, he's not getting overly aggressive, he's literally trying to work out exactly where the opposition are to the best of his ability. Well, you do see the additional push-up of those T1s, so I'm quite curious if they're trying to bait them across, trying to find out exactly where they are in the best way possible, not overextending, not getting too damaged before the fight actually comes down, and try and make sure they really utilize their time the best way possible. So I want to see what Mr. Chef's doing right now, because he's obviously been working that kind of 9-8 line, and he's doing that whole way across again, so it's back and forth. This is very strange the way this is panning out.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen steps being played before, at least on WoT Pro League stage. So your guess is almost as good as mine on what's going to happen, because it's a map I haven't seen. I mean, I've played in random battles and stuff, so I know what the terrain is. But in terms of tactics, these teams are probably making them themselves. They don't really know how the map's been supposed to be played. I mean, if the Russians are watching this stream, they'll be probably face-palming and saying, why don't you do this, why don't you do that? Because they've been playing it throughout the whole of their Season 1.
Yeah.
Usually what we saw happen then was every team pushed up here if they were from the south. The North team defended, and whichever one won that exchange was the winner of the battle. Obviously, the European teams perhaps not caught up in that respect, but maybe they've got a better metagame, as looks like World of War connecting a shell straight onto Doctor Tour. Not a particularly good thing for Dragonborns, because that T1 will be so useful for the anti-cap fight later on.
Exactly, and that's what we saw, the AMX 1390 in the hands of Mr. Chef doing there. He worked his way all the way up that 2-line. Once again, flanking completely around the map, using those T1s as almost a kind of buffering point. He knew where they were, so it wasn't in that vicinity, and he managed to spot another. So it's a nice bit of play coming out from these guys, showing exactly, you know, the team ability and chemistry they have to work down the opposition with barely receiving any return fire.
Yeah, that's for sure. It was a good little move there, and using probably binocular telescopes on one of their MX 1390s to spot that T1, or coated optics, depends which one. But you know, I think both teams looking to reset the fight a little bit. Pings going out from HUNS Underdogs right towards the trench. I think they want one of their MX 1390s to go back there and scout. They have pushed up a T1 a little bit to the rock, joining the MX 1390 there of Mr. Chef.
Yeah, indeed. I feel that HUNS are really the aggressor here. I feel that they're trying to work down the opposition a lot more than we've seen from the opposition right now, who've been quite happily sitting back or so to the eyes of the HUNS at the moment. But I want to see if they bring something out, if they kind of amalgamate everything that's happened and go, okay, we know kind of what they're doing here, let's see if we can counter this. But there is finally a little bit of movement. We do see the vast amount of those AMX 1390s making the way up that 9 line right now. The T1's pushing up straight towards the flag. This is going to be the HUNS' move right now, I do believe. They've spotted another T69, and I'm curious to see if there's been any spots back from the opposition at the moment.
No, they're completely unspotted right now. And I think this is probably the move they did against Team Dignitas, and they executed it poorly then, obviously, because they lost spectacularly. But maybe they've learned their lesson now, as T1 charging in, trying to get spots out first. Crooks will be there to connect a shell. Well, he doesn't. Uncrow there to back him up. Mr. Chef as well, He's there. He's the one on the lowest health, so he'd be wanting to take the most damage. But here we go. There's a big fight right there. Threaten connecting shells. He does go down. Vanguard, MX39 will be first. Threaten's on 1-2-1.
Yeah, indeed. And the exchange has truly gone down. Only you guys left standing in that section, and there he goes. And these guys have played that perfectly. You said we're not sure if this is the way they should play it, and I think they've just shown us exactly how they should. Yeah,
it's undeniable damage from the AMX1390. Completely and utterly surrounded and obliterated those 3 tanks on their own. Dragonborns will be kicking themselves a little bit because they were caught out in the open. They couldn't spot them, they couldn't do anything. And the T1 just being there was the worst thing. I mean, the T1s went forwards, they kind of distracted Uncro and Crooks, and then they pushed around. But, you know, this is a tactic that will only work once against a team. If HUNS Underdogs think they can pick this map again and again and think it'll work, then they're going to be in for a nasty surprise, because once you've done that once you've done that bluff once of spotting, of putting 2 T1s forward, so you distract them and you send your other runs around, well, the other team's like, okay, we know what they're doing and we'll just counter it. So really good tactics, really well thought out, and one of those tactics you can see they've trained a lot. But will it work a second time? I don't think so.
I'm kind of happy my prediction's working right now. So as much as I love the analysis, I'm right so far. And I like that.
Damn it.
What can I say? So it was a long wait, but it was truly worth it. It was nice seeing a little bit of a varied strat coming out. It was a little bit different. It's not quite what we saw.
Definitely
we saw
not.
quite a passive start from both sides. We saw the one-player scouting that I didn't expect to. The T1s weren't used to scout, which kind of baffled me a bit there. But you did already mention, obviously, the speed element. Everyone seemed quite versatile with that in lineup. But as you said, it's not going to work twice.
Yeah, definitely
so
not.
On the next map, surely HUNS are going to be forced here to do something different.
Yeah, they're going to have to do something different, and the next time they play Steps as well, they'll have to do something different.
Yeah.
I mean, the basic problem then for Dragonborns was the fact that Dr. Toy died for no reason. If they had that T1 left, even if they had Ram left, a little bit harder for him not to die, then they would have spotted, okay, there's just two T1s and AMX1390, not the main force of HUNS, and then they would know, okay, let's just keep our tanks together, let's keep them consolidated, we can repel a massive attack like that. So losing their T1's very bad for them. We always say how much the T1 matters in this game. A lot of people ask us why, why is it used? It's only a T1, but it's used because it's a scout. It's used because it can win games.
Yeah. So I think they're going to start picking, and we do have our map choice there. So what do you think we're going to see from these two? We already see a very specific strat coming out from the HUNS. Do you think we're going to see something similar to that with a little bit of a curious choice? Or do you think they can play a bit more safe now? Obviously, they've had the chance to kind of experiment on that first map to catch them off guard. Do you think we're going to see something similar, or do you think they go back to basics here?
I think they're going to have to go back to basics on Prokhorovka, because it is a map that's been played for so long. I mean, Steps, you can come up with those clever tactics because, you know, teams have no experience on it. Dragonborns probably haven't trained that much on it. Team Dignitas have, obviously, because they're the Russians. They played it in Star Ladder throughout season 1 to 4. So that's probably why Dignitas managed to repel such an attack, because they're used to it. But on a map like Prokhorovka, Dragonborns would have seen every single variable. They would have seen every single kind of attack. So it's hard to come up with really clever strategies like that. But if they have come up with something clever, especially now artillery is not being used, maybe they come up with some cool combo, they're not relying on just waiting for the artillery to connect the shells, then we could see one.
So looking at the picks so far, are you seeing anything you wouldn't normally expect? Or do you think this is quite a standardized way to play this so far?
I think pretty standard. I mean, T1s, T69s, AMX1390s, although Dragonborn's picking an AMX 5100, which we don't see on Prokhorovka, let alone open maps that much. But they did pick it last time. Didn't work out too well for them. Vanguard getting completely obliterated. But if it works because there's no artillery, then it will work and every team will start using it. And because there's no artillery, as I said before, that's why it will work, because it's not that slow, does a lot of damage, got a bit more HP than the normal French tanks. So it could work, and I think it will.
I think we're seeing Crocs going for that same tank again. He seems quite happy in that.
Yeah, he actually picked it last season. He seems to be the resident Chinese tank player. Pretty good tank, I like it. I mean, very 6.5 seconds reload, something around that mark. Decent amount of damage, 250, 270 penetration. It's a good little tank there, especially against autoloaders. I mean, AMX1390s can miss shots all over the place. They're a bit unreliable. WZ132 can easily connect the shells, and it will connect the shells. Very, very, very important against autoloading tanks.
Indeed. So selections being made. They just want a minute to gather themselves and get ready for this one. Obviously, you've already mentioned the map briefly. With this being one of the ones we would have seen RT on if, obviously, the patch hadn't come out.
For
Do you
sure,
think this
for
would
sure.
have been certainly suiting it? So how do you think they're going to change, obviously, the way they're playing here? You've seen the tank picks. How do you think they're going to make up for that element? Do you think they're going to have to go more aggressive now? Do you think they have to challenge more?
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to play into the way they kind of adapt their strats?
Well, unlike steps, there's a lot more cover, I guess. I mean, on steps, you just have kind of the base areas and a little bit around the flanks. You have a couple of rocks and stuff which have been kind of designed for random battle engagements. But 7 versus 7 on something like Prokhorovka, where there's so many bushes, there's so much cover. You have the rail lines, you have the mountain area, you have the road area to the left where you have all the trees and stuff. It's not quite clear-cut. You can't just drive around the map arbitrarily like we saw HUNS do in the previous one, because you're not going to get spotted immediately by a tank that's not going to be spotted. It's going to be in a bush. It's going to be behind cover, and that tank will be able to engage you, no problems at all. And you'll have no idea where it is, and you'll have no idea how to engage it, because if it's something like a WZ-132, which is quite vulnerable on its own, then you can engage it. But it might be an AMX-1390. It may be an AMX-5100.
So, picks in mind, maps in mind. It's almost time to go now.
So, welcome to Prokhorovka. We just saw HUNS Underdogs take the first map on steps quite convincingly, actually. But Prokhorovka, as I was talking about, is a more commonplace map. Dragonborns will feel more comfortable actually filtering out towards the right side. Looks like HUNS Underdogs playing towards the middle, playing to the map strength, the middle area, and the forest area from the north spawn. Dragonborns playing to the south spawn's strength, which is the mountain area, which is the village area, and most importantly, that rail line cutting straight through the map.
Yeah, indeed, and the HUNS don't seem to be playing too passively here. They're very happy getting fairly far pushed up. They're not sitting back this time. We do see a couple of players finally make them good towards cover, trying to slow down a touch here towards the centre of this map. We do see them, as you said, taking the middle push down at 4 and 5 line. 1T1 just sitting back a touch, but the T2 lines and that T71 have made their way all the way down that 2 lines. So could be seeing something interesting coming out here.
Well, strangely enough, actually, Dr. Torre has picked an AMX-1390, which is quite weird because he's usually the artillery player. But we've seen in the past someone like Kusok. He was the resident artillery player for WoT Pro, and now he was playing the T-32. He was playing all sorts of things. So it's proof in the pudding that you can play any tank. I mean, if you're good at one tank, you're good at all tanks. That's pretty much what they say. But here we go. We have got an engagement.
Yeah, Uncro was spotted there, and, well, the T69s for the HUN side are enjoying this one. Already taken him down to only 632 HP. So I'm going to have to see if he gets himself out of that situation, as I believe Mr. Chef was rather close, and he spotted him again. That T69 is in trouble, but as is Mr. Chef, he's going to have to back out there. He did get tracked just a touch. He was almost worked out of that situation, but using the deflate, as you said, nicely using the cover towards the middle of this map. But they are in a bit of trouble here. He got a little bit too aggressive, it seems.
Yeah, he did, for sure, and so did Uncro, because he got half his HP wiped off him. But as I was saying, that WZ-132, living up to its name, it could make that quick snap hard shot between the rail car and the rail tracks very easily, no problems at all. And it's that reliability you really need in this game. As Mr. Chef has also gone down to 603, as you were said by this T-71. Did Crooks connect another shell there?
Well, look at the HUN side. The vast amount that are positioned towards that central marker are looking pretty damn healthy right now. I don't think they received a natural scratch from any of that exchange. So not looking too bad to go forward. I believe the T71 is just making its way back through again, just to kind of keep eyes on the map, to try and spot something out towards the other side of those rail lines that do situate their way through this map. There's Mr. Chef again, being the player who gets quite aggressive, but he's just trying to work out where they are. It seems very similar to the way they played the first map, but obviously knowing the map, they've positioned themselves a lot better. And they kind of, I believe, have worked out exactly where the opposition may be now sitting towards and sitting in. They're just going to have to slowly but surely start working away at the positions and edging further forward, because the T69s are splitting off into twos now. They're just going to sit there and wait it out. They don't have to rush things. That T1 has got the complete 7, 8 and 9 line covered, and there we have it. Another spot going out from Mr. Chef there, catching a glimpse of that AMX 5100 just further down the line, but now he's in severe trouble. The shells are flying towards him. He's knocked down to only 510, and he's going to have to try and return fire. Did he get a connection? No, he missed it. Now he lands it. Nice little bit of work coming in there from Mr. Chef, really being a key player right now. Yeah,
that was a nice kill, as Caxa does take down Vanguard as well. So T1's been knocked out. Crooks replying with a kill onto Caxa. So advantage to, for sure, the HUNS Underdogs team, but it's still pretty even season. UK just took a couple of shells as well. Seems to have not learned his lesson that you cannot go where Uncro went towards the train lines. You can't go there on random battles, so you cannot certainly go there in World of Tanks Pro League matches, because the teams know how to counter it. They know what to do once the tank's there, and they can connect their shells no problem at all.
Yeah, and with that T1 down now for the HUNS, I'm kind of curious if the other side will now make a push up that 9 and 8 line. The T69s and the vast amount of the HUNS seem fairly worried about this right now. They're happy just dominating this middle section. And I want to see if Mr. Chef has found some more, and I think he has actually. He's caught a glimpse of a couple there, as now the shots are connecting. It's Crux who's getting worked down right now, and severe fire comes in. And it's March who does get the shot off there and does take him out. So they've been working this so nicely right now. Yeah,
that was an excellent play for HUNS Underdogs. Crux was spotted straight off the bat. And it's those actually changes we've been talking about in 8.6 that come into play then. Usually in the previous patch that would have been a hard few shots to make, but here those shells after shells connected, no problem at all, and just wipe Crooks straight off the face of this map. But now Dragonborns kind of forced into an awkward situation, but they seem to be playing really uncomfortably, not naturally at all, not playing into the map at all. Very unusual from that team.
Yeah, and let's just bear in mind what's happening right now. The T69s are making their way up that 6 and 7 line straight towards that flag gap. We saw the early push coming out from Mr. Chef and co, spotting out exactly where they are, and you can see them now trying to populate it. They split off 2 of those T69s, leaving 2 back by their middle position, and now the fire is coming in. They have caught a glimpse of one of the opposition there, straight down behind them. Did they get a connection there?
They did connect onto Crooks 1 shell, but Crooks did a few more at them. He got at least 3 shells off, so around the 8. But UK being taken down straight by Nichols back in his T69, and that's a big blow for Dragonborns. AMX 5100 I was talking about could be useful in this map, being wiped out, being too big. I said it's too much of a target, I think. And Dragonborns just not, as I said, not playing at all towards the strengths of their team, not playing at all well. I mean, HUNS Underdogs not playing particularly. I mean, they're not playing anything special. They're just completely outmaneuvering, completely outplaying on the basic level on Dragonborns.
Yeah, they are not missing these shells right now. And well, the last of the Dragonborns is almost found. They're taking down another member. So this is not going well for them. You can see the HUNS side are getting aggressive. They're pushing straight in towards those 8 and 9 lines where they thought they were populating. And there we have it. That cab went underway, and that was a very quick game for these guys.
Excellent game, actually. Very well played, very well maneuvered by HUNS Underdogs. A win they definitely deserved. Mikizio doing a cool 1.8k damage in this T69, and they're loving those. They're loving those huge 1 tank setup lineups, taking 5 AMX 3090s on steps, 4 T69s on Prokhorovka, 1 T71, and now obviously because they wanted to take a T2 light. So interesting lineups from them. Something unusual, something we haven't seen before. Definitely working, but yeah, Dragonborns just don't seem to have turned up to the party here.
They seem completely lost at the moment. They've been completely roped in, spotted, and taken down very comfortably by a side who, on paper, probably shouldn't be doing it this easily. I think that obviously the HUNS are very capable, don't get me wrong. They are a side you can't take too lightly. But the way this is going, as you said, Dragonborns are barely making a dent at the moment. And I'm kind of curious, why? Do you think they're really feeling the impact of obviously not having their captain with them right now, and they don't have the arty that you said they're very fond of? Is this really making that much of an impact?
I think it is. I think they were a team, probably one of the more so of the artillery teams. I mean, but then again, they have the tank players. It's not like that's an excuse, because
Of course.
they're not like, it's not like they're making plays like HUNS Underdogs and just failing miserably. They're not making any plays. They're going to one place, hoping that HUNS Underdogs, hoping the other team makes a mistake, and they're just not. They're just playing it cool. They're just playing it calculated, and they're just winning in every respect. So Dragonborns, it's not like they've played anything. It's not like they've done anything. They failed. They've just done nothing and failed, which is worse in my opinion.
It really is.
Yeah.
I wanted to see coming into a new season, these guys, following on, proving that they can get to that higher marker now. That they're not going to be sitting around that middle of the board. And obviously that first game was maybe a bit of a off day for them. But now it's starting to make sense, and it's going to get tough during the next couple of match days for these guys especially, because the other teams are adapting. They're getting used to what's happening. They're getting used to the new patch, the new tanks.
Yeah.
If they don't start doing that, they're going to be in a world of trouble here.
They certainly are. I mean, they cannot continue playing as they are now. Obviously, we were talking about they were a good team last season, but they just qualified 6th. I think this is going to be a season of the underdogs, of the new guys. Team more what DE going 2-0 up. We
Exactly.
saw D-Nova, who were a good team at the beginning. We'll be seeing them play Team Dignitas later. They got old players. They got a couple of new players in there, and they're doing really well. So there's no excuse. You can't just say, "Oh, we got a new lineup, so we're not going to do so well." You've got to play well from the get-go. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself struggling at the end to get the 6th place you want, and you're going to be kicking yourself if you get 7th and saying, "Oh, why didn't we lose that? Why did we lose that one game?" Exactly, at the beginning of the season.
It can make that much difference.
Exactly.
So we are going to be going into the next map here. So we do see the picks underway already. Why don't you take us through what we're seeing at the moment?
Well, we're seeing T69s, MX5100, once again from Dragonborns, perhaps an underlying feature of their tank lineup strategy throughout the season. Maybe, maybe not, we'll see. It's perhaps because one of their players feels most comfortable while they don't have the optimal lineup. MX1390 is also being picked, T1s as well. So both teams pretty much the same apart from that MX5100.
Yeah, indeed. And now, mind you, said this map was one that you could see RT on. That it was one that might have allowed that before, and yeah, I don't think we're going to see it this time. Do you?
I honestly don't think we'll see it. I mean, we saw how much damage it did last time. It did like 120 or something to a T69, and there's been a little bit back and forth on the forums as I was talking about how the teams disliked how little damage the Bisons were doing, how ineffective they were. So I think we'll see that completely scrapped. We'll see perhaps a T2 light or something, but I don't think we'll see a Bison here. Sean has it, and certainly not something like a GV Panthers. We see teams picking T69s, Mr. Chef from HUNS Underdogs picking the MX1390 T69, T1 being the last of Dragonborns picks, while HUNS Underdogs picking the MX1390 as their last pick. But pretty. I think this is more. This is going to be the pretty standard lineups going into Season 2, because I think they just work. I mean, they would have worked in Season 1, but artillery was just a little bit stronger then.
Yeah, and there was obviously that threat. If you didn't pick up the artillery, the opposition would get that upper hand, and now that's been removed, or made it a little bit less, I wouldn't say redundant, but it's not exactly the best choice in the world. We're going to have to see how this one plays out.
So here we go. HUNS Underdogs 2-0 up against Dragonborns going into Mines, taking surprisingly the first 2 open maps. Perhaps, as we were saying, maps Dragonborns are used to winning via artillery, courtesy of Dr. Toya or Magus. But Dragonborns could make a comeback. They lost 3-2 against Team WoT as being their 2-0 up. So the vice versa could happen here. We could see them make a great comeback as Thren pushing up on the hill. Will be surprised by a couple of tanks. There we go. HUNS Underdogs being there now. I don't know why Threaten has pushed so far, to be honest. Obviously, none of the two teams will be reloaded. Crooks will have reloaded. AMX 1390 versus AMX 1390, but HUNS Underdogs definitely not the victor in this situation.
No, indeed. They're being caught off guard here. You can see them chasing down. Mr. Chef did get his eyes initially on there and did lay down some good damage. But still, they're in a bit of trouble now. Obviously, that early exchange didn't work out too badly, looking at the damage that actually occurred towards them. Mr. Chef is fairly pushed up as well, as is David, as is Nicholas. So the positioning-wise, it's not bad, but they have to be careful. They are in a bit of a treacherous position, and this map seems to always allow for that early exchange, that early battle that you never quite know who's going to come out the better. Yeah,
that's for sure. I mean, Threaten just saw himself lose 439 HP from the initial battle, dropping off the cliff. It's no excuse for doing that, because at the end of the day you can slow yourself down as you drive down the cliff, so you only need to angle your tank like 30 degrees to the right or left and then drive down to parallel like you're swimming against the current. It works in exactly the same way. So I don't know why he lost quite so much health. It looks like they're kind of thrown in the towel a little bit here, Dragonborns.
Yeah, indeed. And while Mr. Chef and Nicholas both keeping eyes on Yukai, and they knew exactly where some of the other players are as well, so they're working out exactly where they're left standing. The T1 positioning towards that 1 and 2 line, around that marker, just keeping eyes on. And I want to see how this exchange goes down, because I don't see it looking particularly too good for, well, Dragonborns right now, who needed this. It wasn't a matter of, oh, it'd be good to have that on our side, but this is a necessity. And to kind of have that early exchange going the way it did, it's not looking good. It
certainly isn't looking good. I mean, so much HP being taking off Dragonborns. I don't know why they put Threaten on his own onto the hill. I mean, against a lineup which has a T69, at least a couple of them, and also, you know, 3 of them at least, actually, 2 AMX 1390s. Why would you put a tank that's not going to be reloaded and is going to be completely ineffective for like 40 seconds onto the hill on its own? I have no idea. But they probably had an idea, but you know, sometimes when you have an idea and it's wrong, but your whole team's like, oh, it's good, it's a good idea, then it's just there and you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, indeed. And you can see the T69s just waiting back here, waiting to get a little bit more of a glimpse on the opposition. Literally, as soon as Mr. Chef and Nicholas keep spotting these players, as soon as they make the move, I can imagine there's going to be a reciprocated move from these guys. So it's literally that kind of battle of patience right now, is who's going to be the one to make that initial mistake? Who's the one to make the move first of all? And I'm curious to see if Dragonborns have the patience to sit there and wait for it. Now they've been, worked down fairly surprisingly.
Well, we have our answer. Dr. Tour pushing forwards, taking out David 0001 in his T1. I actually enjoyed that. I mean, he played well, he just pushed forwards, he knew the T1 was going to be there, he stopped at the perfect time, but now HUNS Underdogs are engaging. Yeah,
indeed, the HUNS are making their way up straight through the middle here. The shells are landing correctly under Uncro right now. Mr. Chef has found Thurton as well, right after that initial exchange, and look, more and more just being handed to them as the shells are landing perfectly, picking up 3 quick frags in succession, leaving only Yukai right now towards the midsection as Mr. Chef follows up with a hat-trick of frags there. He's taken down 3 of the opposition. GG's already being said. There is no faith with the Dragonborn side right now.
No, that was a battle of pretty much nothing. I mean, Dragonborns lost the HP at the beginning. HUNS Underdogs had the initiative, they pushed off the hill, they had the HP advantage, they had the initiative because they were making the first ones to make the move, and they saw Dr. Tour was out of position because he had pushed the T1. So they had everything in their favor, they had nothing to worry about, and you could see the result, everything obliterate on the Dragonborn side, and almost nothing dead on the HUNS Underdog side.
Incredible way to play this out, as now only one man stands for the opposition as the HUNS look pretty comfortable here. They're getting that cap underway. Mr. Chef and World of War just doing the work in mid. Once again, I've got to say my standout player right now has been Mr. Chef. He's been playing so well throughout this every single time, being that key player. And there we have it. The final opposition member will be found. The game will be won. And what a way to kick things off here for the team that we thought probably wouldn't go be doing too much work, have really proven themselves on 3 very different maps. Yeah, that was a good performance by them, a solid performance by them. Dragonborns didn't give them the most to run for their money, but it was a good display. I mean, they showed coordination, they showed player skill, they showed initiative and skill and all the things you need in this game to be successful. So a good performance by them for sure, but you know, they need something to test them. You know, Dragonborns just didn't test them then. Nope. They just, nothing at all which tested them. Not a single play then.
So it'll be interesting to see in like an hour time when they play the next match
how it goes down.
If they're going to be so confident against the team that's a little bit more testing.
So we do have another match coming up in just a moment. But as you mentioned, if you do want to keep eyes on the results, I'm sure we know a person who can tell you exactly how to do that.
Yeah, there we go. I can tell you, but I need the woman allow me to speak, because usually like women, yeah, they never let the guys speak, don't they?
You're not far away from me, you know. I can still throw something at you from this range.
I'm still gonna push it to see how far I can go. But yeah, talking about getting involved in that, we had a vote up on Facebook. Question was, who's going to win the game, HUNS or Dragonborns? And it was actually, well, the votes has changed now, so I'm going to guess it was about 80% votes for Dragonborns.
Wow.
And it wasn't even 80% close to even winning or whatever. That was just like, that was miles away. There wasn't even, yeah. So, bad luck for the most of the guys, because they could have won some bonus codes here. So the lucky people who voted for HUNS, I'm going to pick some out of there, and then you can get your codes. You're going to have the same for the next game as well. But I want to spice this one up. Add a bit of, well, you can just click on who you think's going to win, but I want you to guess the exact result. So then you just write in the comments what you think, how the game's going to end. Add your in-game nickname or whatever, so we can get in touch with you. And don't forget to like the page, otherwise we can't get in touch with you anyway. And also on Twitter, just let us know who's going to win. Also follow Twitter, just so you know, so we can mail you. You should see all the information at the bottom right now, and you might be lucky. There's so many ants here, but I got one more thing I want to add. We met 1,815 followers now. I want to challenge you guys to hit the 2,000 mark. If you do that today, I'm gonna grab so many bonus codes. Probably people, I might lose my job doing this, but for you guys, I'm gonna take the risk. So hit the 2,000 mark, and then I'm just gonna throw a bunch of codes out there. So give it a try.
The man's job's on the line, guys. Help him out. If it all goes wrong.
My job.
No, don't help. That's my job to help him lose his job, not you guys. But do make sure you do exactly as he said. It's pretty simple. It's not too hard. Obviously, it is fairly easy to like or follow something on Facebook or Twitter. I think even I've done it.
It's quite easy. You've done it?
I know, and I'm not even in the kitchen, and I'm working things out. It is an absolute miracle.
Oh, that was good. I
got to tell myself.
I like these jokes.
I don't.
At least Stephen's not making them, because usually it's Stephen making these jokes. I'm glad it's you, because it's better that way, I think.
Why do you think I mute him very quickly? It restricts how much time we have with Stephen.
Yeah,
but
good idea.
Stephen aside, our not so glamorous assistant today, we do have another game coming up.
Certainly do.
And it's going to be a good one.
It's going to be the best. Honestly, when I picked this map, I was looking through the teams and who would be playing, and I was like, wow, that's going to be incredible. Dinova versus Team Dignitas. I just couldn't. We had to watch it.
Oh, indeed. The rivalry goes back to Season 1 as well. This is not the first time these guys have met. They've met several times before, and it's always ended one way, and it's not in Dinova's favour at all. It's always been the same result, and they haven't won yet.
Yeah.
So surely, new season, new patch, maybe they can pull something off here. But it's not going to be easy. Obviously, Team Dignitas are one of the teams that you can look to as someone to really bring in the results. Obviously, winning DreamHack was one way to do it, and going forward, it's a small thing. It's not that easy to do, and winning DreamHack's not that simple, really. So we're just going to have to find out how it goes down. So your money, who's it going to be on then? Because obviously the polls will be up on the Facebook forums and on Twitter. Who's your money going to be on? If you could vote right now, who'd you vote for?
Well, it's almost impossible to call. I mean, Season 1, I would have voted for Team Dignitas, hands down. But how much, enthusiasm and passion the Dinova guys have been playing in the first couple of match days. Obviously, it's not indicative how they play the rest of the season, because it's just 2 games. But it's going to be. I'm going to have to go for Dinova. Well,
we've heard his thoughts. You'll hear mine after this commercial break. We're going to go for a quick little break so you guys can get your voting on Facebook. Let us know on Twitter. We'll be back in just a moment.